Hello, and I will just wish Marcus and his family the best. Marcus, unfortunately, could not join us. He's still dealing with a family medical issue, and we wish them the best. Keith, on the other hand, had some technical problems, hardware problems, and I hope he can resolve those for the next show. So we're gonna probably have a little bit of an abbreviated show today, but there's still some things to cover. So first of all, we're gonna cover Nina's election. Nina Turner unfortunately lost the election, and we'll cover that. Eviction moratorium battle behind the scenes, and the record-breaking fires in the Mediterranean. So let's launch in. You can always reach us at UHAM no joke if you wish to do so. All right. So we have basically seen the victory of the Democratic Party establishment in the race. There was a close race, a race that Nina Turner dominated previously, and unfortunately has now lost by a few percentage points to Chantel Brown. Chantel Brown was propped up by the party establishment that not only threw a large amount of funds her way, but also touted some really ridiculous lies in the process of supporting her, such as that Nina was not in favor of healthcare for all, and was not in favor of minimum wage, or things that are obviously exactly the reversed. They've used funds that they got in the last minute to blast those out and smear Nina Turner. As a result, she got mostly funded actually by the Democrat majority for Israel campaign, which is basically some Cleveland Jews that have donated a large sum of money. It ended up being like, I believe it was like $2 million. They trumped all the other donations to her campaign, and so that at the very end of the campaign, while Turner has used up most of her campaign money, by then appears to have made the difference. This is a rather unfortunate turn of events. In addition to that, as you probably have heard, the GOP has also donated monies, or members of the GOP, donors that have supported Trump and other Republicans, have donated to her campaign, and that's by itself kind of shameful to Chantel Brown. That, of course, there's no shame to go around there, but I think it's kind of indicative where those why those monies were donated. So meanwhile, we're still fighting for Medicare for all, $15 minimum wage, eviction moratorium issues, and reduction, like help with rent and pandemic assistance and so forth. On the progressive side, it is a shame that people can so easily be swayed just by big money in advertising. They do not look deep enough to figure out what the truth is, and so they're easily swayed to whoever the favorite corporate candidate is, and that is something that is deeply disturbing to me and most progressives, I believe. And we're in an uphill battle. We have to basically overcome that almost impossible hurdle through independent media, through things that are just not. We're not fighting a fair battle here. And that is extremely frustrating. I couldn't help but feeling pretty down after this loss, feeling that nothing that you do can ever help. Nina Turner had such a huge following. She had high visibility as a previous chair of our revolution in the entire. She was Bernie's second person in terms of surrogates, and if she couldn't make it, it feels like who else can? But ultimately, I had to remind myself. I mean, that's basically what that kind of attitude would really serve the establishment, and they would rather that we give up and just lay down and allow them to trample all over us. We cannot afford to do that. There's really no option. I mean, we're talking about situations where the entire environment is at stake, people's health, as they cannot pay for their own medical bills, and basically living of millions of Americans on a non-livable wage. So those are not matters of like policy differences or whatever. Those are existential questions, and we can simply not afford to not keep fighting the good fight. But we have to, of course, get better at it and better and get all involved. There's really no space for sitting on the sidelines. Whatever you can do, whether it's donations, whether it's participating in a campaign on the ground, whether it's calling Congress, pressuring Congress, and so forth, that is what we got to do. So it's not that there wasn't any advances on the progressive side of things, and we'll get into it in a moment. But right now the establishment finds it pretty encouraging. And here's a article from the Washington Post, and I think you'll find it just as enraging as I do, but they see it as a green light for Biden administration not to bow, so to speak, to progressive demands, because obviously if we can't push someone like Nina Turner into office, then what good are we? So they're taking it as a sign to just basically turn on any progressive pushes on the left. We can't let them do that. And that brings me to the topic of the eviction moratorium. If you've been paying attention this week, the eviction moratorium almost expired. 11 million Americans would have been affected and thrown to the streets. And through just perseverance of a few individual House members, progressive House members, such as Jaipal, Cory Bush was leading that. Of course, also AOC was there, and Talib, and all the known squad people were participating in this sit-out set out, I would call it, in front of the on the Capitol steps. They spent 5 days over there protesting, and eventually the Biden administration caved and found a way to extend the moratorium a little further. Of course, that's just kicking the can down the road. It's not solving the problem, because monies that were supposed to be distributed to pay for rents to landlords have not been yet, and so there's a backlog of rent all around the country, and the minute the eviction expires, it's going to be a tragedy of a tremendous scope, and I don't know if you can imagine what this situation would have been now. I think it's just I can't understand how Democrats, even if they were not pushed, how they could have allowed millions of Americans to be evicted. That would have caused the economy tremendous hardship, and it would have been all on this administration's watch and on this Democratic Congress watch, and how that wasn't enough to persuade them, and they needed further push is just beyond me. It appears to be just completely unimaginable that they wouldn't see that. However, that was the case. So basically on Thursday, the Biden White House indicated that they would not seek to extend the moratorium on their behalf, and would require Congress to rule on it. And they claimed that the Supreme Court has stated that they would not allow it to continue, which was not true. It was something. If there was any grain of truth in that, it's that there was an opinion sent by a single juror, by Kavanaugh, that indicated that if they extended it by the administration, that the Supreme Court might strike it down. But there was no basis for it. There was no discussion by the Supreme Court about it. So there's really no truth to that statement. And so they tried to hide behind that. Eventually, they were not able to, because the progressives pushed back on it, and they had to come up with an extension which they claimed was a workaround. Really funny that they had to wait till being pushed on it to find a workaround, as if that wasn't by itself an urgent enough thing to address and find a solution for. Congress, on the other hand, has not picked up on that request to extend the moratorium. Instead, they wanted to go home to their on vacation, and that included a lot of the Democrats. The Progressive Caucus has put a bill on the floor through Congressman Waters, and Democrats were still decided to go out on vacation and not deal with it, and that's where all of this last-minute struggle happened. So, let's see the interview. That there was basically a discussion of how that came about. Here we go.
This is what has been the most frustrating part of this whole conversation. We obviously didn't have a lot of time. That's understood. We got the notification on Thursday, and we, rushed to produce legislation with the leadership of Chairwoman Waters. And we believed it was important to stay over the weekend, negotiate, and have the ability to vote on the bill. We believed that people should be on the record voting on a yes or no on whether 11 million people possibly should be facing eviction. And then they should be forced to go to their constituents and explain why they made their decisions. And the fact that leadership decided to not do that, to not take that route, was frustrating, not just for me, but even for Chairwoman Waters, who certainly thought it was really important for us to take a vote on the bill that she produced. The thing that most people find really confusing about this whole thing is that we would choose to go on recess and prioritize our time when the people who sent us desperately needed us to act. And I always said it's really important for us to send people who have fluency in the day-to-day struggles of their constituents. And this was very evident on how important that is.
And just to understand, when you're saying you only got notice on Thursday, explain what you mean by that for people who can't understand how this went down at the last minute. You got notice from the Biden administration that they weren't going to extend it?
Yes, we've been communicating since May, even earlier than that, with the administration and saying, we need you all to expand the eviction moratorium. People are going to be at risk. The money that we appropriated to help renters and landlords isn't going out as fast as it should be. Municipalities and states need more time, and we need you all to take action. And it wasn't until Thursday that they affirmatively told us that it was going to be up to Congress to create that expansion. They weren't going to do it themselves. And then, it was a rush in the House to try to figure out what we could do and how fast that legislation could be put together. I remember being pulled aside by Chairwoman Waters in the middle of one of those votes and saying, we're going to put this bill on the floor. Talk to your colleagues. Chairwoman Chayapal from the Progressive Caucus asked, if we can pull together an emergency meeting. As you know, I serve as the whip of the Progressive Caucus to gauge where we will be at. And a lot of us, dispatched and started having conversations with our colleagues, even some moderate Democrats, to say, what do you need in order for you to be able to be with us in protecting 11 million people across this country from being evicted? And as those conversations were taking place throughout Friday, it was our understanding that those conversations would continue, that we would legislate and that we would protect these 11 million people. And we were shocked when we saw that leadership decided to seek unanimous consent and was not going to bring the bill to the floor for a vote, and that some of our colleagues were leaving, and they were choosing to also not leave their proxy votes because, during the pandemic, we've been able to have the ability to vote without being physically at the Capitol. And the fact that they weren't willing to leave their proxy votes with people so that we could actually pass legislation was alarming to us and, very shameful.
Yeah, so it is shameful. It is very shameful. And what's more of a concern to me is that we haven't really solved the underlying issues. I mean, they've done a few things regarding help with rents during the pandemic, which hasn't really yet been done, and that's by itself criminal to have dragged it so far. This is something that cannot wait, and they've yet not distributed all the money. And the other thing is, like, they've distributed the money, they're distributing it straight to landlords, which in my opinion would have been a better deal if they distributed it to the tenants rather than the landlords, and have the tenants responsible to pay the rent. And if they were not, then they could be evicted. But the payment directly to the landlords brings situations where they can attempt to further evict people, and if they don't know how to fight it in court, they indeed evict them. And there's been a lot of evictions during this period of time. We just don't realize that, but it's not that there haven't been any. Some people were not able to, or didn't know how to protect themselves. So those landlords still are going to get those monies, in spite of the fact that they threw out their tenants. So that is by itself kind of a blunder, but nevertheless, it's also concerning that the rent have been allowed to keep rising in spite of the pandemic and the problems that we've encountered, and that root cause has also not been fully taken care of. So once this moratorium gets swept away, and eventually it will expire, what then? What's going to happen to those millions then? So we're just running in front of it, but I don't know how it's going to end. It's a very alarming thing, and if the Democratic Party cannot address this thing, it will pay dearly in the next elections, no doubt about it. We have had a record-breaking fires in all over the Mediterranean. It was Croatia and Turkey and Greece and Ukraine and even Lebanon, Israel. Where else? It's the entire Italy, Sicily. There've been tremendous, huge fires in the last week, and the conditions are not getting better. They're still expecting the worst yet to come in Greece and in other places. And scientists do believe that it's directly related to the climate emergency and to the conditions, the dry conditions. Let's see the report.
One of the most dangerous wildfires of the season so far. It took 500 first responders working around the clock and countless aerial sorties to bring this blaze just north of the Greek capital under control. Volunteers working alongside police and fire rescue teams managed to keep the flames from spreading to more populated areas of Athens. Outside the police cordon, anxious residents waited, unable to go home.
It's a total catastrophe. My neighbour's house burned down, and I called him and he was distraught. We're talking about complete destruction. Maybe my house has burned down also. I don't know. I'm assuming this because my neighbour's house burned down. We have been destroyed. As a family, financially, we're finished. We are finished.
As night fell, helicopters and planes stopped their water drops, and ground crews took over the task of keeping the flames at bay. At daybreak, roads reopened to reveal the scale of devastation. Dozens of homes and businesses completely destroyed. 24 hours after this fire started, the ground here is still smoldering. Here in this tree line, what fire rescue teams are worried about now is that the record high temperatures, the ongoing heat wave, as well as the wind picking up again, will begin to rekindle the flames and restart the fires that they've already put out. As remaining small fires were extinguished, people were allowed to return to see what was left. For 35 years, Vasilis Michelas lived in a house he built with his own hands, next to his workshop where he restored classic cars. The collection was priceless. The fire took everything.
I
first saw the fire around noon. At that point, the fire was high up on the mountain. I left for a little while to do some chores and I came back, and the police wouldn't let me get through. I was waiting for 4 hours.
Had police let him back sooner, he says, he may have been able to save something of value to help him rebuild. Asked to put a price on the damage, he says he has absolutely no idea. Hotter weather is forecast in weeks to come. Scenes like this are likely to play out again. Even as the situation north of Athens improved, record high heat sparked dozens more wildfires across Greece that are still out of control. Zain Basravi, Al Jazeera, Athens.
I'd say this guy's car collection is the least of trouble. It's sad, but what's tremendously disturbing here is the amount of carbon dioxide that's being released into the atmosphere in every one of these fires. So it's just aggravating things, and we've talked about positive feedback loops. That's one of them, and that's only going to aggravate the weather pattern and continue escalating this situation. So all these signs are like really showing that we're on the very, very brink of an irreversible situation, and I don't know what else we can do but yell and scream and tell all our relatives and push and organize protest. But this is not good. This is the last stages. We're kind of like grasping for air on our deathbed as a planet. It seems to me that's pretty obvious. Scientists have just this week released research that indicated that the global water flow in the oceans is about to collapse. And if it collapses, if it indeed collapses, if the patterns destabilize to the point where they cannot follow their traditional, their regular pattern, the entire global world weather pattern is going to follow and completely destabilize. And then we're going to see not just what we're seeing now, but far, far worse. And that is very disturbing new data. We cannot afford to allow the fossil fuel companies and politicians to keep marching in the wrong direction. This is just extremely, extremely worrisome to me, and I wish I could provide more optimistic, a more optimistic point of view, but it's very dire, and we all have to take it in that perspective and not fool ourselves. Because that's not helpful to fool ourselves to think that we're not in as serious a situation as we are. Here is another report regarding the fires in the Mediterranean.
Get out quickly. That was the message to residents in this community just 30 kilometers from Athens. Firefighters have been struggling to get this latest blaze near the Greek capital under control. Just hours earlier, flames came close to the site of the ancient Olympics. An all-out battle ultimately saved one of the country's most treasured attractions. And scores of fires are still raging across Greece. Rescuers are exhausted after working nearly non-stop. Many blame climate change as one of the main triggers of the fires. They are hitting many regions dependent on tourism at a crucial time, which were already battered by the pandemic. In Turkey, a wall of fire surged toward a huge power plant on the Aegean coast. Thousands of residents fled. By land and by sea. Some refused to go. If this gets more extreme, we will leave, but we don't want to be the first. We were born in this region and have always lived here. We have our workplaces, our flats. I also work in tourism. What should I do? Where do you want us to go at our age? We live here. This is our home. Our last solution would have been to throw ourselves into the sea, but thank God it didn't happen here. So we stayed home and kept our phones on. Eventually, after nearly half a day, the power plant was spared. Turkey has seen its worst wildfires in decades. They have scorched untold hectares of land. In some areas, temperatures have topped 40 degrees for days. On the Italian island of Sicily, dozens of fires have also been burning. Extreme heat has fueled these blazes, but officials here say arson is to blame as well.
Yeah. Well, I know it is not a very good note to go on. People do not like to hear bad news, and I know that's not making a stream like ours popular, but it has to be said, and we have to be frank with ourselves and not continue to kind of understate what is going on. So that's as much as I can say about that.